listening to Awake Radio. Straight talk for the awake and aware.
Good evening, Awake Radio. Got to retrain me to press lock talk tonight. I have a great guest. Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon will be up soon, right after this song. Stay tuned. He's a great guest. Welcome to Paula Live. I have Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon with me tonight. Say hello, Roger. It's great to have you. Oh, I tell you, just want to get this day over with. You're the highlight of my day. I love it when I get to talk to you. Yep, okay, that was it. We got you now.
All right. Well, what we were discussing just prior to going on air was I put up a post, and it's titled on the Liberty Beacon, "So You Don't Believe in the Evil of Controlled Disease and Vaccines." Well, we've heard a lot of hearsay and a lot of what people call conspiracy theories about the AIDS virus. And there are a lot of people who have been stating over and over again that it was a manufactured disease. And there were even articles written about the actual scientist who was involved in the manufacture of the original AIDS virus. But Flo Hoffman, and I will mention her name, a very, very good patriot and a good friend, provided me with a video that is narrated by, or actually I should say the speaker on the video is Dr. Boyd Graves. And basically some of the high points of the video that really, really got my attention, because it provides documentation for each and every one of these points that he makes, is that AIDS virus was intentionally developed by the U.S. government, and there's even a virus creation program, and he has the program book, one of the few existing, because I guess most of them have been destroyed, and he displays the book right on the video that shows the actual development of controlled diseases by the U.S. government, of which AIDS was one of them.
My God,
that's, yeah. And it gets even worse, because not only that, but he also states that there is an existing cure for the disease AIDS, and it is patented by the U.S. government, and the patent number is 5676977. So anybody can go to the U.S. patent website and put in that number, 5676977, and it comes up as a cure for the disease AIDS, patented by the U.S. government. Now, what really, really swings us around to tyranny here is that there's also documentation, which he displays on the video, showing that the HIV virus was introduced into the smallpox vaccine that was being distributed to the continent of Africa, which means that a lot of the people of Africa who have AIDS, and there are literally millions of them, it was done intentionally through the smallpox vaccine.
You know, before I even knew any of this stuff, smallpox vaccine and AIDS just checkerboard each other, just cross constantly.
Well, the thing of it is, as the smallpox, if you take a look at the actual curve of its rise in how many people were affected in the world, all the way down to where it was basically eradicated, you will find that smallpox was on a huge decline before the vaccine was ever introduced. But
yes, absolutely.
But these vaccines, and of course, I love to talk about Bill Gates. His foundation is vaccinating everybody on the continent of Africa. Now, if they're all
psychopath.
I've done several articles on his foundation, but if you take a look at all of the people who have been vaccinated for smallpox, and you take a look at a particular time, and then you look at the rise of AIDS, and again, he states this in the video, the rise of AIDS on the continent of Africa, as smallpox is declining and about to go away, you're seeing a definite upswing in the occurrence of AIDS in the continent. So they are somehow, you can see just by the curves that they are connected. But it gets even worse, okay? 4,300 people a day die from AIDS. Now, he also has documentation of the elites, okay? And, you know, some of these people are well known to a lot of us. Some of these people have served many, many presidents as advisors, including Kissinger, discussing the fact that the AIDS virus can be used, and this is documented in this video, can be used to basically eradicate a good majority of the population on the continent of Africa for two purposes. One, because they feel that these people are a threat to the United States, and I don't know how they see that. And the second thing is, if you eradicate enough of the population of Africa, then all of the resources of Africa can easily be absconded by the United States. And everything I'm stating here is actually in this video, and he dares people to challenge it because he has the documentation, he has the patent number, he has the document for the production of controlled diseases by the U.S. government, and he's daring people to do their own fact-checking and disprove anything he's saying. But I finished the article off with what I thought was probably the high point or the point of the article, why I was so upset and why I had to post this video. And it says, if even one human life is lost to tyranny, this should be unacceptable to all of humanity. And that's exactly, we're losing 4,300 people a day to AIDS. Now, there are 365 days in the year, and AIDS has been an issue since the late 70s, early 80s. So let's do the math. For going on 35 years that we have known about AIDS, where it has been really prevalent in the public's consciousness, is about 30 to 32 years. True. Let's imagine, okay, 365 times 4,300 times 32 years. Jesus. Oh. How many people have died? And the vast majority of this targeted disease are on the continent of Africa. You can't tell me this isn't genocide. Because if, and again, I will always give anybody the benefit of the doubt, if someone can do research that disproves this, which I very highly doubt anybody can from what I've seen, I will say, if this is true, okay? And I do believe it is, but if it is true, you are looking at one of the, if not the largest genocide in the history of mankind. Oh my God. Do the numbers yourself. Just multiply those numbers. 4,300 times 365 times 32. That's a huge number.
That's a big chunk. You know, the continent of Africa could feed the whole world. Just that garden there.
Yep, they could. And did they ask for this?
Is that why they want it?
There are a lot of natural resources in
including gold and diamonds.
You're looking at over 50 million people that have died from AIDS that we are aware of. Because on the continent of Africa, healthcare is not, I mean, a lot of it is rural country, a lot of it is very sparsely populated, and a lot of it, they don't even have healthcare whatsoever. So that number might be closer to 70 or 80 million people that have died in the last 30 years because of the AIDS virus. So, you know, I hate to start your show off with such a bummer or a downbeat topic. But to me, this really bothered me, and I do appreciate Flo sending the information, but some of the information people send me, and I have put posts out across the Liberty Beacon associated groups, and we literally have millions of people across hundreds of groups and pages and websites that we're associated with. They're not
Absolutely.
members because we don't have membership. What we do is we associate with organizations, we share their information, they share our information. So it's a very loose-knit association. But we have a lot of people. Now, I put out a post across the network on several occasions saying, if you find a really good story that you feel is relevant to we the people, something you feel needs to be in the public eye, then send me a link and let us look it over. And I have gotten a great response from some great patriots. And we'll discuss some of the other topics as we go along. But this one was so fresh in my mind because I just posted this probably, I don't know, less than 30 minutes ago. And let me tell you how many reads it has had on the website in about 30 minutes. 250 reads in less than 30 minutes. And it's just been
amazing.
Posted. Now, usually
Well, it's
what happens...
great because this is what we do, Roger. You and I share information, and when something hits the iron like that and just sizzles.
Well, usually what
We're
happens when you, even if you post something red hot, is that it takes about an hour for people to see it, assimilate it, share it, and for numbers start to build. Sometimes it might take 2 hours. I had a post yesterday that accumulated 4,500 hits. Okay, and that was about GMOs, and that's another topic I'm sure we'll get into. But I actually titled this article, Is This the Ultimate... when I posted it around the links, I put a short synopsis of the article to draw people's attention to it. Then they can click on the link. Well, I titled that synopsis, Is This the Ultimate GMO Tyranny? Because this virus is supposedly a genetically modified existing organism. Okay, from another virus, another disease
I
that
put
was
that in
modified.
the chat line, by the way. If you guys want to see it, just click on that. It takes you straight to Liberty Beacon.
And it is, if you go to health, it's the top article in the health section. And that's a featured article, so it's right on the left-hand side, second column down, second category down on the left-hand column. And it is really getting hit. Now, again, I don't take anything for granted, but this is not the first time I've seen this video. I published an article about this about 18 months ago, and it went viral then. Okay, so I wasn't surprised to see how quickly it's gaining steam, but if you just stop and think of the 4 points I put out from that article, you just have to understand that the people running this country, and I get tired of saying the government, because the government of this country is not the people in Washington, D.C. Okay, I am a devout constitutionalist. Paula, you and I are the government. This is a nation governed by the people, not the people in Washington. They are our representatives. They are there to represent our wishes, our needs, and what we feel the direction of this country should be. Now, I will also state that if this country falls to tyranny, it will not be as a result of a tyrannical government. It will be as a result of the apathy that a lot of we the people are showing today. I would say 10 to 15% of us are actually awake and aware. Now, that's a big number. That's like 40, 50 million people. But you got to remember there's 330 million plus people in this country, and the vast majority of them could excuse my French, give a crap less. They really could. As long as they've got their six-pack, they've got their big screen TV, they've got their video games, they've got their whatever distraction they use to keep themselves away from anything that's going to bum them out, anything that's going to depress them. Now, I can't blame all of these people because a lot of these people bust their ass. The economy's bad, life is not good. People get home from work and they want to recreate or they want to relax and unwind. But at the same time, this country is ruled by you and me, everybody listening to this show in this country, and everybody who supports the Liberty Beacon Project, and all of those who don't. So when people keep saying our government is evil, our government made the AIDS vaccine, the AIDS virus, our government is giving the AIDS virus to all these people in Africa. It's not our government doing it. It's our elected representatives that are doing this. We are the government. And the sooner we remember that, and the sooner we bring that forward and show, if only 15% of us would unite our voices, 50 million people, this government could not. And again, I have to use that word because that's what most people understand. The people in Washington are the government. I think it would be better to say this administration would have no choice but to listen. Because 50 million people is it's a small portion of the U.S. population, but it's still a big damn number.
Getting them off the couch is another thing.
Paula, I believe that 25 to 30% of this country is every bit as awake as any one of your listeners or the supporters on the Liberty Beacon Project, so on and so forth. I believe that. But I also believe that a lot of them are timid. A lot of them feel that a lot of their neighbors around them would think ill of them, call them conspiracy theorists.
I have people whisper things that I didn't think were awake that let me know they were awake, but as if they're going to be shot any second for agreeing with me. So the timid, I really agree with that.
Well, and these aren't sheeple, and they're not, and again, the word patriots is an overused and abused word, but they're not patriots or supporters of liberty organizations such as you run and we run. But at the same time, they are fully aware of what's going on. Now, let me give you a few particulars to prove that, okay? I made a comment on a post that I put up probably about 3 or 4 months ago that stated, since Obama took office, an additional, over and above the normal purchases, an additional 64, and that was months ago, I would say it's probably closer to 70 million firearms have been purchased in this country. It is the biggest gain in firearms purchases in the history of this country, and it all started when Obama got elected. Now put that into perspective. How many of these people are actually asleep, or how many of them are just playing possum?
True. That's another way to see it.
If you've got 64 to 70 million additional over and above the normal firearms purchased in the last 4.5 years, there aren't that many people in our movement. So somebody is aware of what's going on and is getting ready for what might happen, what could happen, what we're trying to prevent from happening. And they're just not out there beating the drum like we are. So I do believe that we have a much larger portion of this population that are awake and aware, but we haven't coordinated them with our projects yet. Now, let me give you another.
Not only the timid people, but when we have these another set that are staying back and quiet, and a lot of those are preppers.
Yep, that was another thing I was going to mention. But let me give you another, for instance, okay? I did an article on the rising push towards Obama's impeachment the other day. And several mainstream media polls actually shocked the hell out of me because they posted their data showing that 50%, better, actually, it says better than 50% of the U.S. population is totally disapproves of and is sick and tired of the crap going on and coming out of Congress. And, okay, that close to 50% of all of the conservatives and those who relate with conservatives in some fashion, like the libertarians or the constitutionalists, are all for and dead set for impeaching Obama. So if you just stop and figure there's 330 million people in this country, and you start taking the halves and the quarters and the 40 percenters, and you start doing the numbers, what you must understand is that 50% of 330 million is 165 million people. That's a lot of people who are tired of Obama in Congress. They've had it. And it's not just that they're displeased, because in Obama's last term, I believe Congress's approval rating dropped below 11%. That's just absolutely horrendous. When, excuse me, when about only 10% or 1 out of 10 people in this country approve of what their representatives are doing, then that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt we're not being represented properly.
Absolutely.
We're not. And the people are aware of this. So, again, the government is we the people. We are supposed to control this country. And we have lost the bubble. Well, people are getting angry. Now, the Liberty Beacon Project is not, we do not advocate violence in any way, shape, or form.
No,
there are enough of us in this country that if we unite our voices, if we unify our message, even if it's, and we all have different reasons why things are screwed up in America. But if we can all agree on one thing, and believe it or not, this is the criterion for any group associating with the Liberty Beacon Project and us. I use the word advertising because it explains to people what I'm saying, but it's not commercial advertising. Advertising their forums is that they have to agree to one thing. And it's not that Obama is a tyrant, and it's not that Congress is full of tyrants, and it's not that GMOs are out to poison the world. It's none of these things. The one concept they all have to agree on is that the system is broke.
Definitely.
There's 1,000 reasons why it's broke, but if we all agree that it's broke, then we have a common purpose to move forward. The system's broke.
Yes.
Okay, when a car engine is broken, okay, unless you have you're one of these people who are born with a perfectly tuned ear who can listen to an engine and say, oh, well, that's the lifter on whatever, on cylinder umpty scratch and blah, blah. Just by listening to it. Most of us don't have those skills. The skills we do have is in doing diagnostics, okay? So we check this, we check this, we check this, we check this, and we eliminate what isn't broken. What we end up with is what is broken. So there are, and I would hate to say 1,000 things that are broken in this country, but it might actually be true. But there are quite a few things broken in this country, and we don't all have to agree on each and every one of them. But we do all have to agree that the system is broken and we need to fix it. So that's our point of commonality.
Yes, definitely. Wow. And
Okay.
it is that easy.
I'm going to take a breath now.
Do you want to go for a song and have a break really quick?
No. Let's go for a few more minutes because we've got a 2-hour forum here, and I don't want to be dodging in and out. And you have been associated with the Liberty Beacon Project for quite a while. As a matter of fact, you are a great co-host occasionally on our podcast shows, and for that I'm very grateful.
I love joining you for the shows.
You are aware that I have no problem talking.
That's another good thing about you.
Well, and getting ready for a show, especially if I know it's going to be 2 hours, a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna talk about for 2 hours? And then when the show starts, at the end of 2 hours, I'm going to myself, well, I should have talked about this and I should have talked about this, but yet I talked for 2 hours.
I know. That happens to me too sometimes. I think, how am I going to fill this? And at the end, I'm like, oh gosh, there were several points I could have mentioned.
Oh yeah. Now, unless you have a strictly choreographed show, and I do those occasionally, where the show is about one topic, okay? Then, if you have an open forum such as this, which I really like, because you get a very eclectic show where you learn a little bit about this, a little bit about this, and a little bit about this, and what that does is your audience isn't all tuned in to necessarily hear about one topic. So if when you cover a plethora of topics, a virtual cornucopia of information is spewed forth, and you find that everybody in the audience found something that caught their interest.
True. True. At least, yeah, it's hard to do that like when you're doing music, because people can have certain tastes with music, but when you get in these topics and you pull them in, you can find uh, the phone ringing. You can find, way better audience with that, because this is what's on everybody's mind. This is what we want to hear, not what they're pumping over the boob tube.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And let's jump to another topic here. Something else that I posted about and is really, really bugging me. Okay? We do a lot of talking, especially in the Liberty Beacon Project, because we just don't cover political tyranny. We cover the tyranny of GMOs. We cover the tyranny of vaccines. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you, because each and every person has to figure this out for themselves, okay? Not to go out and vaccinate your children. I will let the articles I post explain the whys and the why nots with factual information. And if we started to go through that, that would be 2 hours in itself. But we discussed the tyranny of vaccines, such as spiking the smallpox vaccine with AIDS virus and inoculating the entire continent of Africa. Okay? I mean, that's tyranny in its boldest sense. Okay? You just can't get away.
Genocide to the line, to the T. Bang
Okay.
on.
But another thing that has been hidden from us, and the mainstream media, when I was a kid, if anything happened to affect the health or the well-being of the population, it was all over the news.
Oh, yeah.
When's the last time you heard anything on the mainstream media about Fukushima?
And I saw that post too. I was going to bring that up if you hadn't.
Oh, I'm definitely going to bring
It's
that
on
up.
its way. The radiation is still just
Well,
huge problem, and you see nothing about this.
Already thyroid, and you've got to, most people have to understand that the prevailing winds from Japan wash right across the Alaskan, Canadian, and North American coast and the northern Mexican coast. We get the full blast of this. As a matter of fact, it is stated by scientific fact that within 10 years, and Fukushima is already a couple of years old, within 10 years, so we're talking 8 years now or less, the United States will have a higher radiation count than the waters right off the coast of Japan. Because the prevailing winds, and it's on their eastern coast, so the prevailing winds blows it right away from them. And it dances right across the ocean, it comes down in our rain. Incidents of thyroid cancer are already going up along the entire west coast of the United States. So within 10 years, the radiation count on the west coast of the United States is going to be higher than it is right on the coast of Japan. Now, most people need to understand that when Chernobyl went off, or when 3 Mile Island went off, we heard about it until everything was contained. there is still massive radiation and radioactive water leakage from that affected reactor in Fukushima. It hasn't
Absolutely.
stopped. It is not 100% out of control. As a matter of fact, there are fish right off the coast of Japan, and we are still buying all kinds of fish and other stuff from Japan, and our government refuses to intervene, stop it, or even tell us about it. But yet these fish have a radioactive level 350 times above the government limit for radioactivity in our food. 350 times. Now let's
Jeez.
take 10 and multiply it times 35. That's 350. Okay? Multiply that times 350. How many times? How much larger is that number? You're talking about a massive amount of radiation leakage into the water off the coast of Japan. Well, look at the ocean currents. Where do you think that's going? Look at the air currents. Where do you think that's going? But yet, I would challenge anybody listening to this show to just think. Because a lot of people, even though they're awake and aware, still get their evening news from CBS or NBC or Fox or MSNBC. They still do, at least a portion of it. I challenge you to think back and remember the last time you heard anything about Fukushima. Now, the United States is going to be the hardest hit in the entire Pacific region by this radiation. And the government is fully aware of this. They're fully aware of the fact that it is documented that thyroid cancer, especially, and this is the sad part, in children, is skyrocketing on the west coast of the United States. That's not a coincidence. Now, stop and think about this, okay? The prevailing winds will move it inland. It's not going to stop at the Pacific coastline of the United States like there's some magic barrier there. There's already raised radiation levels in western Oregon, in western Montana, or eastern Oregon, western Montana, Colorado, going on down. And it is raising daily. Within 10 years, we are going to have cesium poisoning across the vast majority of the western portion, not just the west coast of the United States, and that will continue to spread inland. The half-life of this radioactive material is in the thousands of years. It doesn't go away.
Did you put your number up for me?
Came, or because we had a breeze.
Thank you.
When this stuff falls to earth, it contaminates the soil. Now, we can get rid of GMOs. We can force, and this is going to happen eventually, it's already in the upswing, we can force the people we buy food from, the grocery stores, we can force them to label food and not buy anything that's GMO. And we're going to get into GMOs, but not just yet. Okay? Vaccines, no, regardless of what the government says to you, it is illegal for them to force you to take any vaccines. And anybody that does enough research and homework will find this out. And a lot of that information is available in the health section on the Liberty Beacon website. Okay? So these are two things we can do something about. The tyranny of vaccines, the tyranny of GMOs, we can do something about them. What the hell are you going to do about the radiation from Fukushima? Are you going to get out there and put a big lead shield between you and this radiation? There's nothing we can do to stop it.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
why do you think the government won't discuss it?
Because there's nothing they can do. Is there anything that we could do?
Well,
I mean,
iodine,
like you said, it's already here.
Iodine tablets work. There are other things we can do to keep ourselves healthy. I mean, the radiation we're being exposed to, it takes a period of time for it to affect you. It's not like you're going to walk outside and bam, you got thyroid cancer, okay? There are things that you can do, and you can go to health sites. Natural News is one of the best. Okay, and there are some other good health
Yeah,
websites.
also the National Health Federation will show you how to opt out just about anywhere you live.
So, I mean, you have mechanisms to help protect yourself from this. But it is something that is going to become an increasing problem to the point where it's going to be, especially along the West Coast, it will border on a catastrophic problem. The government should be
No doubt.
preparing the population for this now. They should be saying, this is what you need to do. These are the herbs you need to be taking. Iodine should be present in everybody on the West Coast medicine cabinet. People should have ways of registering the airborne and the soil-borne radioactive contamination. Now, this sounds like we're talking about somebody lit off a nuclear bomb somewhere, and this is after a nuclear war. No, but it's the same principle, okay? A Geiger counter might be overkill. There are other ways, smaller, less expensive ways to measure radiation.
Oh, you didn't go in
But
there.
if you had a
Just wanted
Geiger
to show
counter,
you
would
one.
it hurt? No, it wouldn't. Because this is not a joke. This is not a scare tactic. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is reality. And the last post I put up on Fukushima, which is also probably right underneath the one on the AIDS article
Yeah.
I wrote.
I'm going to grab it to share. Yeah.
It shows it has a picture of a radioactive plume spreading out off the coast of Japan. Take a look at that plume and look at who is right in the crosshairs. This is a huge plume of radioactivity. Now, the red in the plume shows the heaviest radioactivity. The orange, less intense, but still. The yellow, less intense, but still damaging. All the way down to almost the same color of blue as the water. But if you look where that's hitting, who's going to get clobbered by it? There's nothing we can do about it.
Ouch.
You don't hear anything about it, Paula. Nothing. These are the things that keep me sitting at the computer, doing research, posting articles to the Liberty Beacon Project and all the other fine contributors we have posting articles or giving me information to post. This is why we do what we do, because this pisses us off. It does. And if the government, oh God, I use that word again, if the administration is not going to do something about it, the only mechanism we have is for we the people to pick the ball up and run with it. Well, we the people is the Liberty Beacon. We the people is Paula Live. We the people are, we're our own salvation. Nobody is going to come and save the day for us. If, for those sitting back on your couch waiting for the Lone Ranger to ride in, kill the bad guy, and ride off, and you can live happily ever after, it's not gonna happen.
There's nobody coming. Sorry.
It's us. Okay, I'm going to give your audience a break. So if you would like music, I will get something to drink to wet my parched throat, and we'll continue with another topic when you return.
Sounds good. We're back. Just talking to Roger Landry with the Liberty Beacon over at thelibertybeacon.com.
And I'm enjoying it. I always enjoy doing a show with you, Paula. You're a very, very good host.
Thank you. It's mutual.
All right. Well,
Actually, we've done a few shows, and are they still up at the Liberty Beacon? If you go over, people can go over. They can find your the pods.
Actually, we're revamping the entire site. We're putting in a social module. We're splitting the health issues such as vaccines, radiation, GMOs, chemtrails off into another subdomain, and keeping the Liberty Beacon main domain for the politics. And we're also putting a social module in, And believe it or not, we're going to put in a recordable video chat so that anybody who wants to record their own video podcast, which would have picture as well as sound, and we're going to move our venue over to that too, you can record a video podcast on the Liberty Beacon website. So we're doing major upgrades. Once those are complete, within the next 30 days at the most, we've already started them. But we want to do them.
Only 30 days.
Well, we want to do them. We could do it quicker, but we want to do them in small enough segments and at times when, excuse me, traffic is minimal, or in an invisible fashion, so that we don't interrupt the traffic flow to the website. Okay?
True. Yes, absolutely. Because you get, how many hits a day do you get over there, you guys?
Well, on a bad day, we're usually getting 5,000 to 6,000. On a good day, upwards in excess of 25,000 visits a day.
Wow.
Yesterday
you guys
was,
rock. That's what I like about the Liberty Beacon. You know, it's out there. You put it out there, and you get as much flack as we do, and we still pump it out anyway. It's like it's my job to put the information out there, not to convince anyone that it's true.
Yesterday was a medium day for us. We got approximately 10,000 visits. But if you think about that, that's 300,000 a month. I was gone. I'm sure you're aware of this. I was gone from the internet for approximately 45 to 50 days. I have moved from Rhode Island to the state of Montana, Big Sky.
It was
state.
like a ghost town without you, by the way. I mean, Facebook, there were tumbleweeds and shit. I'm telling you, it was pretty bad.
Well, I don't know if it was quite that bad, but when I got back, I noticed I got a lot of messages. There's 9,000 people on my wall, or very close to it. I have 5,000 friends and close to 4,000 followers. We used to call them subscribers. I don't like the word followers because that indicates that I'm some type of a leader. I don't consider myself a leader. I don't want to put myself in a leadership position. As a matter of fact, I would push back against that. What I am is a provider of information. I wish to arm the army of we the people with the facts they need to make this broken system work properly again. The only title I want from anybody is a provider. And this is what I wish to be. But I got so many good well wishes. But having been gone for about 45 to 50 days, just prior to leaving, we were at 500,000 visits a month to that website. And right now, we could easily, within the next couple of weeks, be pushing 300,000 again. And I've only been back up and running for a couple of weeks. So we didn't lose really anybody. They just found something else to occupy themselves while the Liberty Beacon was fine. But they're coming back in droves. And the second site we'll have under a subdomain will also be the Liberty Beacon, but it'll probably be the Liberty Beacon 2, and that will cover all of your vaccine, GMO, radiation, those type of issues. And like I said, we're going to have a social module just like Facebook, only it's not going to be for sharing pictures of your new puppy dog and oh, my baby just turned a year old, isn't she cute in her diaper. The social module is going to be for all of our supporters who wish to be in constant touch with somebody within the Liberty Beacon, whether it be a Liberty Beacon staff member or or someone associated with the Liberty Beacon, where 24/7 you can discuss issues of tyranny, you can discuss issues of politics, you can discuss issues of the administration. And it will always be there, and you know that the people you're talking to are awake and aware to the issues you wish to discuss. Facebook has several huge drawbacks, and one of them is that you can go into a group that says, and this is a fictitious name, okay, GMOs are tyranny, and you can post an article that absolutely speaks to that fact. But yet you're going to have a half a dozen trolls calling you a conspiracy theorist, an idiot. Don't you have better things to do? And this happened to me
Mm-hmm.
just today.
Oh,
Okay.
God, it happens to me all the time.
Oh, of course it does. But I'm just stating this just happened to me about 20 minutes before I went on with you.
Oh,
So
jeez.
the Liberty Beacon social module will be where you know that the people you're talking to understand at least a portion of the concept you're wishing to discuss. Now, nobody, and again, I love to state this. I have this thing I post on my page all the time called Just My Thoughts, and I know you're aware of that, Paula. And I put
Oh,
in
yes, I've
capital
shared them,
letters,
actually.
just my thoughts, dot, dot, dot. And then I make a picture up and I put text on the picture. And it's usually a very short phrase. But one of my latest was, I'm not an expert at anything, but I know just enough about everything to have a decent or an intelligent conversation about everything. Would you like to talk? In
That
other
is you.
words, don't come to me and label me an expert on GMOs, an expert on government tyranny, an expert on vaccines, an expert on Fukushima radiation, because I'm not. I'm not an expert on any of these. But if you wish to have an intelligent conversation on any of these, that I can do. This is the goal of the Liberty Beacon Project, to give people enough information about all of the things that are wrong in our lives, all of the tyranny being presented to us or perpetrated on us, that they can hold an intelligent conversation on the topic. That's it. We're not out to make anybody an expert. We're out to inform. And when you're informed, that doesn't make you an expert. Some experts study for 30 years and they still won't call themselves an expert. So how the hell
True.
can I have, and I don't know if your audience is aware of this, but I've only been awake and aware for 2 years. 2 years ago, if you would have walked into my apartment, um, you would have found Fox News playing almost 24/7 in the background. I hung on every word they said. I believed everything that came out of them. When I went on the internet, I was looking for things on Republicans, and I was looking for anti-Democrat, and I didn't even have a concept of what a libertarian was, what a constitutionalist was. I didn't have a concept on any of that. So for me to call myself an expert on any of this is just flat out ridiculous. But
2 years. Wow, that's not very long at all. What
no,
what was your trigger? What turned your head and started this?
I had a friend who came over, and as he walked in the house, he shook his head. And I had my laptop open, and I think I was doing something on Facebook, because when I first got on Facebook, it was not about politics; it was all social. And he shook his head, and I asked him why he was shaking his head. He says, "Every time I walk into your house, Fox News is on." He said, "Your brain is being poisoned." And I said, "Are you kidding me? Come on." Sean Hannity, that's the do-all, end-all, And I went down and I named all of their big commentators, and I was like, come on, how can you not trust these guys? So he walked over to my laptop, and he brought up a couple of sites, and he brought up a couple of articles. And then he said, well, first he asked me, well, what do you think about the Second Amendment? So I told him, okay? I said, we have the right to bear arms, but at the same time, there's a lot of gun violence in this country, and if we don't bring it under control, it's going to get out of control. So he brought up some articles on the Second Amendment. And then we moved from topic to topic. He sat there with me for 8 hours straight, and we went from topic to topic. And by the time he left, I was shell-shocked. I was totally shell-shocked. I realized that as an intelligent person, and I've always been in a position of authority or a position of responsibility in every job I've had, even for the last 25 years. I'm 58 years old, okay? So I've always managed or gotten hired into a position of authority. I consider
You got
myself
your
to be
number
an
up,
intelligent
Caleb?
person. What I realized was that my intellect was focused on a slim 5% of the knowledge of the world, and the other 95% I was totally ignorant of, which meant that I had such a skewed sense of reality, it was ridiculous. And he proved that to me over and
Oh,
over again.
I've been there.
Now, 2 days after that happened, I started a Facebook group called We the People. And that grew into WTPN, or We the People Network, which was associated with as many as 24 million people in 30 countries across the globe. We even had, excuse me, a weekly TV show that I was doing out of the A9 studios in Istanbul, Turkey. I was Skyping into a show that was part of WTPN, and it was a project called, Building Bridges.
Building
Well,
bridges.
today, Building Bridges is run by Ceylan Uzbadak, and she was my executive director at the time. And when I switched over to the Liberty Beacon project, because of political issues with WTPN, Ceylan took over Building Bridges. But I did a television show in Istanbul, Turkey. Once a week, we actually recorded 3 shows a week, and I was sitting in my bedroom / office in Rhode Island, doing a show,
Wow.
doing a television show in Istanbul, Turkey. So that's the reach we had. Okay. Now,
Wow.
the Liberty Beacon Project is still associated with a vast majority of those forums. We switched over to the Liberty Beacon Project because we had some infighting, and a lot of people are aware of that. And I didn't want to focus on stabbing people in the back or pointing fingers at people saying, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I wanted to focus on liberty and tyranny and issues about what's broken, not only, although a vast majority of it covers the United States because it needs to, but a lot of our articles and our issues have global implications. So that's where the Liberty Beacon Project started up. But all of this is about 2 years old. So the Liberty Beacon still has a reach that exceeds 10 million people, and that's growing daily. And I still have contacts with people in Norway, people in Great Britain, people in Australia, people in Turkey, people in Jerusalem, people in Jordan, people in, and I could list at least 30 different countries where I can get input on a daily basis from people who are just as dedicated in their country or their region of the world as you and I are here in the United States. So if somebody comes up and says something about what's going on in Syria, I can get a hold of Ceylan, who writes frequently about this, and Turkey has a border with Syria. They've had military skirmishes with Syria. They have Syrian refugees by the thousands, tens of thousands, crossing the border into Turkey. Where do you think you're going to find the authentic information? By something handed to you by the government-controlled, owned, and run MSM, or by a reporter who lives in the region and sees this happening physically on a daily basis? So a
Well,
lot of
that's a good thing about us here too. We're rebuilding Awake, and we have people all over the world. South Africa, we have Pamela Covington from Nigeria getting us reports that go completely against what mainstream media says. She's working really hard to get the truth out there from her country. We have Steve in Ireland, and Dave Murphy in England. I think he's over in India now. And then you've got Rick and I over here in different parts of America, and just joining that little bit opens us up so much. So to compare that to the avenues you have spread before you, that's just amazing.
it's a network, okay? It's a network. Now stop and think of what a network is, okay? And
True.
for your listeners who aren't aware, I'm a computer systems engineer, okay? A network is basically a bunch of computers. Each and every one of them is capable of performing functions as a standalone unit in most networks, okay? In other words, I can surf the net, I can write a letter, I can write an article, I can, I can make graphics, I can do all on my unit. But if there is information that I need that I don't have available on my system, then I can go to the server or to another node or another module, another computer within the network and draw on that reservoir of information. Now that is exactly what Paula Live and your network is. That's exactly what the Liberty Beacon Project is. I am still the owner of WTPN, which is our parent company, and all of this is under the WTPN umbrella. But we put the face of the Liberty Beacon Project forward because that's what we use to drive the entire project. But we are networks. We each have the ability to perform our functions locally. But if we need to enhance our information, if we need to fact check, if we need to go to the site of an actual story, not what's being spoon-fed us by people we know damn right well we can't trust, then we network out and we draw that information in. So when you hear people saying, especially business people, well, if you really want to get ahead, you need to network yourself out. That's exactly what they're talking about, okay? You need to have a bunch of other nodes or a bunch of other modules that you can draw information from. The Liberty Beacon Project would be a very tiny thing, almost inconsequential, with very few supporters if all we had was the information we could dig up here locally. It just wouldn't work. But as a network, we have the ability to draw on a multitude of sources. And that's what gives us the edge. That's what gives us the leverage to say the mainstream media is full of crap. And not only to say it, but to show people why they're full of crap. If you just stand up and say, just like so many trolls do, and we know this, they'll go into a forum where you posted a really good article and they'll say, that's a bunch of crap. Prove it. Show me your references. Show me some proof. Well, all they're trying to do is stop you from doing anything else. You're going to run around and dig up sources and more proof. And if you say somebody said something, well, then now they're going to ask you to find out where he said it, what article he said it in. And that is a stalling tactic. That is a diversionary tactic. They use that to redirect you away from what you're trying to do, and that's to get the word out. Okay? This happens constantly. So you can't just stand up and say the MSM is full of crap. You have to say the MSM is full of crap because, and then show unequivocal proof why the MSM is full of crap. And if you can't do that, then you're no more reliable than the MSM you're cutting down. You have to have a mechanism to back up what you're saying. And when you rant the way I do, and Paula, you know, when you and I talk, I never get this passionate, but as soon as you put a mic in front of me and say you're on the air, the passion in me builds. Because I really want to get a word out, but if all I did was talk like this to the people listening to this show, most would leave in 5 minutes.
True.
But if I'm saying, damn it, you got to look at this because, my God, I know it's the truth. Why do you think these backwater preachers have so many followers? Okay? Because they get up to that pulpit and they preach. And they preach with tones that grab your attention. And they use excitement and they use emotion. Because, again, the monotone doesn't put it across. But if I say, hey, Buka,
no, it doesn't. But how can you not have passion when you talk about these monstrosities that are being thrown at us?
I agree. I totally agree. But at the same time, if people don't see or hear or feel the passion in you, how do you expect them to feel the passion or to stir the passion within themselves? So
Yes, true.
passion has to be a transmitted message just as much as the content has to be a transmitted message. It has to be. Okay? I mean, is there any doubt to that whatsoever?
No doubt at all.
All right, let's jump over to another topic real quick, and then you're probably going to want to cut away to a song or something, and let everybody just take a big deep breath and a sigh and say, okay. But anyway, I love what's happening in local politics today because, and I made another just my thoughts yesterday. And I made this up from something that I wrote on a post. Okay. Now I'm going to read or give you the gist of this. And Paula, I'm sure you've seen it, but I don't think many of your followers have. Our detractors say we are accomplishing nothing with organizing, protesting, petitioning, and rants. The Liberty Beacon says our gains may not be in huge strides, but if we as a united and unstoppable force continue to remove the supporting bricks from the wall of tyranny, eventually the wall must crumble and fall. It is and always has been within the power of we the people to accomplish a return to true liberty in this nation. And it is through persistence, perseverance, and patience that we will succeed. Freedom is never free, and by far the worst thing we can do in this struggle for liberty is nothing. Live free. Now, if you stop and think about what I just said, our detractors are saying we are accomplishing nothing with organizing, protesting, and petitioning. Now, I
That's
don't
crap.
just,
We are accomplishing things.
but I'm going to show you how, okay?
Okay.
Most people who research the internet for stories research what the administration says, what poses as our government says, what the MSM says, what is coming in over the AP wires. What they're not looking at is the hundreds, if not thousands, of really good sources of localized news. What happened in Boise, Idaho yesterday? What happened in Kingston, Rhode Island yesterday? What happened? Because whereas I just said what we're accomplishing is not in huge strides, what we're accomplishing is we're winning little battles all over the country. And here's one. Okay? Within the last couple of days, Colorado governor signs industrial hemp bill into law. It is illegal by federal law in this country to grow hemp and use it in any commercial or industrial endeavor. Colorado basically just negated that federal law and said you can now legally grow hemp. Well, what does that mean to people? Well, hemp is not grown in this country not because it's related to cannabis, because it is. They're extremely closely related, except that you have 1% of the THC in hemp that you have, even in the weakest pot you're going to buy from the worst Mexican garbage you can get. Okay? So it's not anything you're ever going to smoke. But hemp, the very
True.
first copy of the Constitution, the original, was written on hemp. The very first flag ever made in the United States was made out of hemp cloth. Hemp was a huge cash crop in plantations in the South throughout the history of this country. It wasn't until the early 1930s when marijuana was criminalized that hemp was also criminalized, because everybody said it is the same thing as cannabis. It's not. It was criminalized by big business. And anybody in your audience who doesn't know that this country is no longer a republic, it is a corporatocracy. The large corporations buy and sell our politicians. Monsanto has a Monsanto protection bill that just got through Congress, signed by the president, which states if you die because GMOs poisoned you, you can't sue Monsanto anymore. It's now a federal law. Okay,
And that's crap.
This is a corporatocracy. Okay, so the corporations got together and decided they were going to get hemp, which is a relative of, is not, but a relative of cannabis, made illegal by federal law. Now, let me explain to you why they did that. There is a substance that can be manufactured from hemp that is a fraction of the weight of concrete with 10 times the strength. It doesn't suffer from frost heaves, so it doesn't crack. You can build roads out of it, house foundations out of it. You can save 20 to 25% of the weight of a building, as much as 50% of the weight of a building by using a hemp process rather than concrete. Hemp seeds are extremely nutritious. They are a health food, a mega health food. Okay? Hemp makes some of the strongest, the most durable, and the most comfortable cloth on the face of the earth. Hemp was made illegal by the large corporations because it would have competed with a lot of them and put them out of business. It would have put the concrete people out of business. It would have put a lot of the vitamin and health food people. A lot of the health food that you're eating and the vitamins you're taking they're made by big pharmaceuticals from chemicals. Sure, they contain that vitamin, but what are the other active ingredients in those vitamins, and what, if any, real health benefits are you getting from the vitamins that are present in those tablets you're taking? A couple of hemp seeds a day would really, really pep up a lot of people in this country. They're illegal. Hemp cloth, illegal. Hempcrete.
I'd like to apologize real quick about the giggling because my friend is messing with me. Stop it, Steve. Thank you.
Well, that's all right, Steve. Make her giggle. She's got a great giggle. See? I told you. But anyway, the point here is that these are the little battles we're winning. Okay? In California,
yeah.
it was spread all across the country that Prop 37 lost. Okay? Nobody tells you that big business, especially Monsanto, pumped $50 million into seeing Prop 37 defeated. Prop 37 would have required all GMO foods to be labeled in the state of California. Okay?
Wow.
They invested $50 million bribing, and I use that word very, very confidently, politicians on the local level to do everything they could to defeat this bill. All right? If you look at this, okay, you will find that a vast majority of the populations, the people of California, that wanted to see that bill passed. It wasn't defeated because of the population. It was defeated because of the corporatocracy. One more example, okay? Let's go to Colorado. We have a state senator in Colorado that was recalled. Why was he recalled? Because he bribed, leveraged, and threatened and coerced a lot of people in the state, and he bragged about this on TV. Bragged about it. Into passing gun laws that were anti-Second Amendment in the state of Colorado. So the people of Colorado got together and did a successful recall on this senator. The very first senator in the state of Colorado to ever be recalled. And I might have that wrong. It might be Nevada. But again, it's the very first senator to ever be recalled. So we have a little victory here in Colorado, a little victory here in Nevada, a little victory here in California, They're all over the country. And when people like you and me who do the research find these stories, we splash them everywhere. And what does it do? It gives the people in Boise, Idaho, the confidence to say, well, if they can do it in Colorado, if they can do it in California, if they can do it in Nevada, we can do it too. And it starts a grassroots movement. We are
True.
not having huge, high profile victories all the time. What we are doing is winning little battles all over the country more and more on a daily basis. It's picking up speed. We are removing those bricks from the supporting wall of tyranny. Everybody knows who has ever built a stone or a brick wall. If you take enough bricks away from the support on that wall, it crumbles and falls. Just my thoughts. Time for a break, Paula?
I guess so. I'm like, wow. Absolutely. I love that you pointed out all these little things, because a lot of us feel like we're just screaming into the wind, but there are all these little battles we're winning, little wars, I guess.
Everywhere,
I haven't
Paula.
won the
They're
battle, but
everywhere.
these little,
They're
yeah,
everywhere. But you won't hear the mainstream media talk about any of them. Oh, one more before you go to break.
yeah,
This one almost knocked me off my seat. Okay?
okay,
GMOs, we've been screaming about them for 10 years. The movement is huge. It's around the world. European countries are banning GMOs. As a matter of fact, China just turned boatloads of U.S. wheat away because they didn't have certificates proving they were non-GMO. But
awesome.
the other day, an MSM newspaper published an anti-GMO article. Guess which newspaper this was?
I can't guess. New York Times.
Yes, you guessed.
I
I thought you
guess.
said you couldn't guess.
I'm kind of slow this time of night,
That
but
article, well, you
but
picked right
faster
up on
than
that.
mornings.
That
Yeah,
article is also on the Liberty Beacon site. Um, you know, I
I
can't
need to
believe
pull that and share it.
is the MSM actually, going to jump on the backs of GMOs? That's my question to everybody. Because the New York Times is mainstream media as you can get, and they will lead the parade. Now you will see the Sentinel. Now you will see the Globe. Now you will see the Town Crier. Now you will see these other papers, because the Times broke the groundwork. They broke the mold. They're in new territory. So you can't have these other newspapers left behind now. They're
I
going to
don't
have to
know.
step
I
up
don't
to
know,
the
because
plate.
they did back in 2012. They did this huge spread on the dangers of aspartame. They had Dr. Morando Safridi, and I guess some people would say that's the more controversial. I'm glad they did it, but I want to see these other ones pick up and run. I really need to see that change.
The next newspaper, the next large newspaper that does a GMO article, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to call you and say, "See, I told you so."
Please do. I want to see it so much.
Again, we're winning so many battles, but the mainstream media will never tell you that. We are literally destroying the foundation of the wall of tyranny. And with that,
Sweet.
I need to get something to drink. My throat is parched.
Okay, we're back and we're live with Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon. Oh
And
gosh, we've covered a little bit tonight, haven't we?
I'm having so much fun. I really am.
You
Um,
grabbed that article during the break.
yeah, and I posted it as Monsanto GMO science now being rejected by the New York Times. And it's not just a small rejection. It's not just a little slap on the hand. Um, Basically, it says, I'm talking about the criticism of Monsanto's so-called science and genetically engineered food. This is the food critic. And the guy who wrote the article says, but it's the way that Mark Bittman, and he's the New York Times food critic, lead food columnist for the Times Magazine, does it, and he really crashes the whole GMO delusion. So the the New York Times is basically quoting from the Times Magazine, which is another mainstream media magazine. So the Times is crashing the concept of GMOs. The New York Times is crashing the concept of GMOs. So again, we're seeing the battles start to add up. And one battle does not a war make, but many battles does a war make. And we're winning more and more battles each day. None of them are catastrophic to the corporatocracy or to the administration, but they're cumulative. In other words, if you get stung by one bee and you're not allergic to bees, it's not going to do much. But if you get stung by 1,000 bees, I don't care whether you're allergic to them or not, you're going down.
True.
So this is what's happening, okay? Each and every time we have one of these small victories somewhere in heartland America, it adds up. It doesn't go away because it's people like you and me and other great liberty-minded people who have other great forums and websites around the country that pick up on these local articles and send them viral, send them national. There were, like I said, over 10,000 visits yesterday on the site alone. Okay, and that's a pretty slow day for us. We've had days over 27,000 visits to the site. And this article was one of our premier articles. We have about a dozen articles that are, the premier articles for the day. So this is one of the first things people from all around the country and other parts of the world see when they click on the main or the homepage of the website. So a lot of people read this article. Now, you would think that, especially the one from Colorado or especially the one from Nevada, okay, you would think that a lot of that news is localized. When you get done with it, when I get done with it, when Natural News gets done with it, when when we get done with these articles, people are talking about it in Schenectady. They're talking about it in San Diego. They're talking about it in Miami. They're talking about it all around the country, and they're posting it, and they're sharing it, and they're giving their thoughts about it, and they're doing their own research into it. So what we're doing is we're making a mountain out of a molehill. How many times have you been told you're making a mountain out of a molehill, as if it's a negative thing? Well, in this process, making a mountain out of a molehill is a damn good thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, do you have anything in particular you would like to discuss? If not, I have another topic.
You have another topic?
Yes. Financial.
Oh, yes.
I am so tired, so very, very tired of hearing over and over again how the economy is getting better, how jobs are being created, and the truth of the matter is that this country is spending so much money on a daily basis. We are digging a hole deeper and deeper every day, and we're already in a hole so deep we can never climb out of it. The crash of the U.S. economy is inevitable. Now, that doesn't mean the end of the world. That doesn't mean we can't pick it back up in a matter of a few months and get something limping along. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to lose their job. What it does mean is that the U.S. dollar is no longer going to be the reserve currency of the world. The petrodollar is going to fall flat on its face. Banks are going to fail. And in the United States every bank that's been on the borderline of failing at this point, what has happened? The Federal Reserve has printed phony money and propped them back up. Where's that money coming from? What's backing it up? There is nothing backing
Nothing.
the dollar in this country, with the exception of some people will tell you, and this is another radio show all in itself, your birth certificate. You are an asset to this country. This country can draw money from or borrow money
True.
against. So, but other than that, what do we have? We're not the largest manufacturing base on the face of the earth, if we speak in proportions to our actual population. How much of our actual, what made this country the most powerful economy on the face of the earth was our industrial base. How much of that has been shipped overseas? A
Oh
vast
gosh.
amount. How many of you listening to this program can go by closed down, boarded up factories in your own town? And when a factory closes down in a town of, say, 5,000 or 6,000 people, and that factory might have employed 2,000 to 3,000 people, okay? Now you have a majority of that town that is out of work or on unemployment benefits or drawing retirement benefits or whatever because they opted for early retirement. Okay, so now what happens? People are out of work. We have a snowball effect. What happens when you take a small snowball and you're standing on the top of a snow-covered mountain and you start to roll it down the hill? Okay, so the factory closes. The factory closes, people are out of work. The disposable income starts to dry up. The next thing that happens is, well, what do you do with disposable income? A lot of people, and I know this is going to sound archaic to a lot of people, but there's still a lot of places in this country where it's done a lot. Go to the bowling alley, okay? The bowling alley closes because not enough people are coming in for them to be profitable anymore. Okay, the hair
Or
salons.
like the ball games in our area.
The hair salons close down because there aren't enough women who can afford to go have their hair done, or they, instead of having it done twice a month, they can only do it once every other month now. Businesses survive on a profit margin. If you have somebody's business, more than likely you have dropped them below the point of profitability. Okay? Once these places close down, what happens next? Grocery stores start to close down. Except the Walmarts, who can afford to buy so cheaply, okay, and sell so cheaply that they can afford to keep their doors open. But the mom and pop grocery stores
Yeah,
certainly
mom
can't.
and pops are gone. Small
They're gone.
businesses gone.
So you drive through mainstream or Main Street, USA, in any town, and I'm not talking about the megatropolises. I'm not talking about any of the huge cities because they're always going to have enough people for a critical mass of business to maintain some level of profitability. But let's talk about, there's only like 100,000 towns in the entire country that have more than 50,000 people in them. The vast majority of towns or cities in this country, we would call them towns, have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 18,000 people in them, all the way down to the town I'm living in has 600 people in it, okay? These people feel this economy and know the truth. They feel the devastation of the disposable income drying up. They feel the devastation of the lack of jobs. When I was in Rhode Island, before I left Rhode Island, I told you this story, Paula, and it's the truth. It was a crying shame. Rhode Island is a very, very liberal state, and I'm not knocking them for being liberal, although I am so far from liberal, it's ridiculous. I'm not a conservative either. I'm a constitutionalist, but that's a little bit further towards the conservative side than the liberal side. But very, very liberal state. And the unemployment rate in Rhode Island is just huge. All right? There was an advertisement for a part-time job at a McDonald's in the town closest, because I lived in the country closest to where I lived. Well, a friend of mine and myself went into town to grab a cup of coffee, and we went to McDonald's to get a cup of coffee. We knew about that job advertisement because a friend of mine called me up because I wasn't working and asked me if, I wanted to go down and apply. Well, I told him no. At that point, I was already thinking about moving to Montana. But when we got into town, There was a line, and I didn't count, but I would say the minimum people in that line was 75, maybe as many as 100 people in line for a part-time, slightly above minimum wage McDonald's job with absolutely no benefits whatsoever. Put
It's
that
like
into
that in a
perspective.
lot of places.
But yet,
Wow.
if you listen to the mainstream media, the job situation is improving. The everything is improving. We're coming out of this recession. That is the biggest load of bullcrap there is. This country right now has a debt limit that is crushing us. The
True.
Bernanke oversees the constant printing of billions of dollars a day in funny money that is not only, now let's put this into perspective, is not only passed out to this country. Do you know when all the banks were failing and they did the big bailouts? Close to 16 trillion. We were told 4 trillion. The actual truth is close to $16 trillion
Jeez.
was printed and spread out to all of these companies to keep them afloat. Now, there are some that would say, and I haven't done enough research to say this is a fact, but I will mention it because a lot of it is pretty credible information. Close to $70 trillion in all, including that 16 trillion, was printed and spread out to companies across the globe to prop them up, including propping up countries. $70 trillion. Let's put that into perspective. Our budget for this
Jeez.
country each year is $3 trillion. But the Fed lent out at zero, or gave away. If they lent it, it was at zero interest, which is basically giving it to you, saying, if you can ever pay it back, okay, if not, fine. Or gave away $70 trillion.
I can't wrap my mind around $70 trillion.
That's 23 years of the present day budget of the entire U.S. economy.
Wow.
Is this out of control or what? Now let's take this one step further. Okay? What most people don't understand, and I also posted this in the Liberty Beacon, and you can find this. I don't know if it's under financial or not. It could be under government. But how many people out there are aware of the fact that how much, well, let me ask you a question. And I'm not asking you, so don't give me an answer, Paula, because I always hate to put you on the spot, especially if you don't know an answer. Because this is not common knowledge. If there out of 100 cents in every dollar spent, okay, in the American economy each year, how much of that each dollar do you think is spent on the military or military-related spending? Out of 100 pennies from each dollar, or percentage.
God, I'd
What
say
percentage?
75, even.
No,
A
but
lot.
that would be catastrophic. In most nations, it's way down. Okay, it's way the hell down. In this country, 53 cents out of every dollar that the government takes in, our
Over
entire
half.
budget for the year, over half of our budget for every year goes to military or military-related spending. Now, if you stop and consider this, okay, the 2011 budget, which is the last one we have any decent figures for, we won't really know everything about 2012 probably till almost 2013. But the last budget we have just about all the facts for, the government asked for $3 trillion to run the country for 2011. Okay? $3 trillion. Now stop and put that into perspective. If 53 cents on every dollar went, and it's actually more than that, because I can show you where it's higher than that, but these are conservative numbers. Okay? 1.6 trillion of that 53 cents out of every dollar, out of that 3 trillion, $1.6 trillion
Oh,
was spent on military or military related spending. Now, we are involved militarily in 6 nations around the world right now, either droning, bombing, supporting Al Qaeda in 2 nations, supporting them,
jeez.
sending the Muslim Brotherhood F-16s and Abrams tanks. This is the Muslim Brotherhood, okay?
Oh, yeah.
This adds up to
Makes no sense.
trillions of dollars. Now, we have been in perpetual war since the year 2001. So for a dozen years, let's average it out at $1 trillion a year. I mean, $1.5 trillion a year. Okay?
Oh, my
So
God.
in a dozen years, we have spent $18 trillion on warfare. What do you think we could have done to boost this U.S. economy, to put people back to work? Hell, to put Americans back into space. This country rides into space on Russian rockets now. This was our mortal enemy less than a generation ago. And now we don't even launch our own scientists or astronauts into space anymore.
Yes, we go piggyback.
Okay, so we could have put NASA back into space. We could have rebuilt the infrastructure of this country. We could have put Social Security back on. We could have put Medicare back on a solid footing so that they're not cutting these benefits. They call them entitlements. That pisses me off. Every check I have ever earned at every job I've ever had, me, myself, and my employer have paid into Social Security. That is not an entitlement, but yet the government says it's an entitlement, okay? And they can rob it whenever they want. That's an investment made by you, Paula, me, and every other working American in this country. But yet they're going to cut back on Social Security, but they're going to spend $18 trillion on wars we have no damn business being in. I believe there are terrorists in this world. I honestly do. I believe we ought to protect our borders against terrorists. I also believe that 95% of the terrorists on the face of this earth have been created by us in the last 12 years because we have killed over, or at least 3 million innocent civilians in the Middle East. The government itself, I'll give you a for instance, says in the drone program that 2 out of every 100 deaths in drone strikes, cumulative drone strikes, were the actual intended target, which means that 2% of the people killed are the target, and 98% of the people we kill are what we quote-unquote call collateral damage. That way it doesn't sound like the horrific fact it really is. We're killing innocent women and children and people that were just unlucky enough to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. 98% of the deaths are collateral damage from drone strikes. Now, don't you think that applies
to... That's what we're paying for.
Now, let's go one step further, okay? We use a massive amount of depleted uranium shells, ammunition. We've used it all over Iraq, all over Afghanistan, every place we've gone in and shot up. Do you know what the birth defect rate is and the stillborn rate is? And I mean, how many, do you know how massive this is in the countries where we've used it, depleted, and we're not cleaning it up? So we're talking about millions of more deaths over the next generations. But yet we can spend $18 trillion on perpetual warfare, but you have to have less Social Security. We have to cut your Medicare benefits. We have to tell you that your unemployment, which you depend on to keep your family eating, is going to be cut off because we can't afford it anymore. We can't fix the crumbling roads. We can't put people to work fixing the crumbling roads and the crumbling infrastructure in this country that's in such bad shape. It's amazing that more bridges don't collapse, more buildings don't collapse, more railroad tracks don't lead to catastrophic
True.
accidents. So stop and put all of this into perspective. When the next time they tell you the economy is getting better, ask them how. Ask them to prove it. Ask them to show you something you can research. What you're going to get is a lot of sugarcoating. What you're going to get is people saying things that sound good to the sheeple because that's what they listen for every night. The sound bites that make the endorphins in their brain squirt out all over the place saying, ooh, comfort. Ooh, this makes me feel good. But it's bullshit. I apologize. Was I not supposed to say that?
No, we're not censored. It is bullshit.
It is. It's unadulterated bullshit. This country is digging the hole that is already too deep to ever climb out of deeper every single day, every minute. So the next time you're told the economy is doing fine, you need to call somebody a liar. And you know what? You'll be right.
True.
Okay, I'll get off that horse for a while.
No, and it's really evident where I live. The small businesses are just almost non-existent anymore. There's row after row of these vacant buildings, and there's all kinds of homeless. It's getting warmer, so they're going back up north. But in Florida, during the winter time, just trying to feed these people, and with all these homes being taken and empty houses, it just seems ludicrous.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but look at all of the signs. Again, it's the endorphin squirt that all these people wait for, the excitotoxins in their brain from the mainstream media telling them everything is getting better. But you look at the closed down factories, you look at how many businesses went out, how many companies and small businesses went out of business in 2012. I'm sure that you could probably get a pretty good statistic for that. And you will find that it is more than happened in 2011. And you will find that's more than happened in 2010. But yet it's getting better. Well, if more and more companies and businesses are going offshore because they can't afford to make a profit here or outright closing their doors, how the hell is the employment picture getting better? Somebody's lying.
It's like it's the brainwashing. They say it over and over, and you believe it. It's not true.
It's like when the
No
government
matter how many times they say it.
It's like when the government said the unemployment picture is getting better because 150,000 or 35,000 less people applied for unemployment benefits last month than did the month before. What they're not telling you is that 60,000 have been on long-term unemployment benefits so long they no longer qualify and they can't get them anymore. So they drop off the rolls, and the government has admitted on more than one occasion they don't count them once they fall off the rolls. So, yeah.
So the numbers aren't even accurate in the first place.
They're not accurate at all. 35,000 more people filed for unemployment benefits last month, and this isn't a real figure, I'm just using a figure, and that's down from the 50,000 that applied for the month before, but they're not telling you that at the same time, 50,000 people fell off the unemployment rolls because they no longer qualify for long-term unemployment benefits. Now, if you put the two of them together, you've got an additional 85,000 people.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
Because they're not only are they unemployed now, but they can't even go to Walmart and buy the cheapest goods around or the cheapest food they can find because they're no longer even collecting long-term unemployment benefits. And how many of those end up on the streets or going back and living with other family members? Or kids moving home and living with mom and dad. I pity the kids getting out of college today because a vast number of them spend so much money, borrow so much money, money they'll never be able to pay back. And when they get out of college, there are no jobs for them. And I'm going to tell you why there's no jobs for them. There's no jobs for them because there's people like me. Okay? I'm a person who has 40 years worth of experience under his belt in professional fields. Now, you get a kid who just went massively into debt, has 4 or 6 years of college. He gets out. We both apply for the exact same job. I've got 40 years of experience and a great resume. This kid just got out of school. He needs a certain amount of money to live. I'm willing to work for less because I got a family to feed, and I'm out of work. I'm an unemployed professional. People like me are killing the job market for the kids getting out of school. Do I feel bad about it? No, I need to eat
you've
too.
got to have a job. You've got exactly.
But how many do there is? And there's a statistic out there. I wish I had it, so I won't give I won't quote a number. But there is a huge number of college kids. Do you know what they do when they get out of school? They go back and live with mom and dad. It's a huge number.
I ate at a restaurant not too long ago, and my waitress has her master's, so, and they make below minimum wage. That's
plus tips.
sickening. Yeah. She has loans to pay back, plus not making enough to actually live in a house of her own or a place of her own. She's like staying with 4 or 5 other underemployed students.
But Paula, the economy's getting better.
Yeah, right.
All right, so how many myths have we just absolutely popped today? Because we've discussed GMOs, we've discussed tyranny, we've discussed finances, we've discussed a little bit about vaccines, we've discussed, we've covered a lot of ground here. And
all the way to Fukushima.
I'm going to sleep good tonight because I got to rant. I got a lot of stuff off my chest.
Oh, I love it when you do that.
I do too, actually. I do. But I'd like to wrap all of this up because I think we've only got 5 or 6 minutes left.
Yes.
I'd like to wrap all of this up by saying how much I appreciate you inviting me onto this forum. Because no matter how big the Liberty Beacon is, we can't do everything and say everything you do. No matter how big WTPN was, the Liberty Beacon can't say and do everything WTPN did. No matter how big Natural News is, and I could go right down the line. None of us is going to win this struggle by ourselves. But with all of us networking together, sharing our information, our knowledge, our ideas, and our ideals, we form an unstoppable, unbeatable force. With 330 million people in this country, I'd be happy with 20%. That'd be 66 million people. Wow. 66 million people could stand against anything, any government, any tyranny, absolutely, any military. I'm gonna give you a little story I was told by a very, very intelligent person that I wasn't aware of. Right after Pearl Harbor, okay, and this is why the government needs to take our guns before they do anything really tyrannical to us. Right after Pearl Harbor, the Emperor Hirohito of Japan looked at Yamamoto, and he was all flush with the victory of sinking most of the U.S. battle fleet in the Pacific, and told Yamamoto,
I know this.
He said, you need to now attack the west coast of the United States. They're hurt, they're crippled, there'll never be a better time. Well, it was unheard of at that point in history, okay, for anybody to disagree with the emperor, because the emperor was basically a deity. He was a semi-god, okay? Yeah. And Yamamoto looked at Hirohito and he said, we can't do that, my emperor. There was a gasp from across the emperor's court. And the emperor's face turned red, and he looked at Yamamoto and he said, can you please explain yourself, Admiral? And the admiral looked at him and he said, if we were to attack the west coast of the United States, or anywhere in the United States, there would be an American with a gun behind every blade of grass.
An army of millions.
Now, I told you 64 million additional guns have been bought since Obama was elected. Let's add up all the millions that were there before he was elected. Let's add up all the ammunition, all the guns, all the training, all the retired, all the ex-military. The most powerful military force on the face of this earth is not the U.S. military unless you count the nuclear bombs. Let's not count them. They're not going to nuke themselves. Okay? The most powerful military force on the face of this earth is the American, we the people, population. We have more guns than almost every other small country in the world combined in private hands. And 10 to 15 times more than the military does.
Wow.
All right, that was my finishing note, and with that, I will tell you, and I think your friend's name is Steve.
Yes,
I will tell
Steve.
the both of you how much I very, very much enjoy every time I get a chance to talk to you.
Wonderful. You'll be back. I'll be bothering you.
Thank you very much, Paula, and I wish you a very pleasant evening.
Awesome. Have a great night. That was Paula Live tonight. We're going out with Tatiana, the same side. See you in the handover room, Rick.
I woke up this morning and I turned on the radio. I heard the same old song, so I went outside. People fighting, people living, people dying, and it's oh so much to think about. It's oh so much to worry about, it makes me cry. Need a better perspective, need some time to reflect it, to remember how similar we all are. We all want the same things, a chance to follow our dreams, to raise a family of love and liberty. So don't forget the time we spent. We're not perfect, but we have good intent, and even though we make mistakes, we stand unified. So hold on tight, it's a hell of a fight, keeps you up in the night, but we have to remember we're all on the same side. We're all on the same side. We're all on the same side. Now it's late in the evening and I can't seem to turn off the news, telling me that we're gonna lose, but we've already won. We've got a message and a voice and a song. Now if only we could all just get along, put away the past and pride and leave the worries behind. Need a bit of perspective, need some time to reflect it, to remember how similar we all are. We all want the same thing, a chance to follow our dreams. We are a family of love and liberty. So don't forget the time we spent. We're not perfect, but we have good intent, and even though we make mistakes, we stand unified. So hold on tight, it's a hell of a fight, keeps you up in the night, but we have to remember we're all on the same side. same side.